Yeah, want to welcome us to this broadcast. Um, this is our first public webinar, and the topic that we are looking at is setting research agenda for early career researchers in Nigeria. So this webinar is actually made possible by Research Hub Nigeria, Frontier Lead Consulting, and Vita Paths. So we want to welcome you all to this public webinar. Before I bring up our guest speaker, I'll just quickly go through. Today we'll be having three persons speak to us. The first person is Dr. Ayobami Ola Niji, who happens to be an infectious disease epidemiology from uh, Robert Koch Institute in Berlin, Germany. He was trained in Nigeria before he moved to Germany, where he is presently leading some efforts. Then the second person that will be speaking to us is Idris Nasiru Abdullahi, who is equally a lecturer at Ahmadu Bello University here in Nigeria at Zaria. He has undergo a lot of effort in different aspects of research. He is presently leading effort in this COVID, looking at the molecular and the immunological response in terms of how the viruses, how human respond to the virus and the virology of the disease itself. Then the third person is Dr. Grace John Ungwanya, who is a pharmaceutical microbiology and equally a molecular scientist. Presently, she is leading some effort in Nigeria here, involved in surveillance and equally uh, in she is equally leading some effort in research agenda. So briefly, I'm going to be bringing up uh, the first presenter. I'm trying to share his screen. So basically, it seems to be having a little issue joining. So I think basically, um, I'm going to bring up um, I'm going to bring up Dr. Grace to start up because of then he's having issue joining in from Germany, but I know it will be resolved in no time. So Dr. Grace will be coming up. Hello, Dr. Grace. Hello, Dr. Grace. Can you hear me? I guess you can hear us now.
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me? I'm really sorry about that.
Okay.
It's unfortunate.
Yeah, I can hear you. So please I will just project your slide so that you can start right away. I want us to welcome Dr. Olaniyi or Ayobami, who is a medical infectious epidemiology from Berlin, from Robert Hooke Institute
Okay. Do I have? Can I go ahead now? Leonard. Okay.
I can hear you, sir.
Okay. So just say start when you want me to start.
You can go ahead. You can start, sir.
Okay. Good evening, everybody. My name is Ayabami Olani. I'm a medical doctor. And as some further training in infectious disease. Currently, you can describe me as a medical infection epidemiologist, and I work with Robert Koch Institute in Berlin. That's the German Center for Disease Control. Primarily, I work on infectious pathogens that are resistant to antibiotics and very difficult to treat. It's a great honor to be here today to talk about, to share my experiences with you, colleagues, about how to become an effective early career researcher, even though we are all in the journey to become an effective researcher. I'm really sorry that we are starting late. Part was due to some technical glitches from my end. Um, as unfortunate as it is, I couldn't avoid it. So for me, I felt it's unfortunate I cannot see the those of you guys on the other side. I don't know how many you are, but I guess we have to do it. Maybe during the question and answer session, I'm going to be able to have a feel of the other people on the other side. And for me, I decided that I'm not going to make this a presentation that's going to have a lot of slides, or we're going to be moving from one slide to the other. I just want you to be focused on just a page, and I will speak to content of this page, and in such a way to make sure that everybody have the presence of mind to follow and to be able to understand clearly one or two ideas that I'm bringing forth. Next slide, please. Okay. And let me say this at the beginning. It's okay for you to interrupt me at any point of this presentation. You could speak out. I don't have a problem with that. You could ask questions at any point, and if you choose to wait till the end, it's also fine for me. So the topic I was given, basically, the aim is to speak to the issue of research and how we could be better at it as early career researchers from Nigeria. And good enough, I'm Nigerian. I had my medical education in Nigeria and also did some postgraduate training in public health medicine at the University College Hospital, where I was until 2017 before I left for Europe. And so I have a good knowledge of the developing country context in terms of research. And for the last 2, 3 years, I've also acquired some international multi-country research experience. So I'll be bringing my perspective to you by drawing from a Nigerian experience and the international experience. So this is the only page we are going to be looking at
Sir,
throughout this
please,
presentation.
to butt in. Sorry to butt in. Can you a bit please be louder? They seems to be having issue hearing you audibly.
Okay, I'll try. So this is the only outline we're going to be using, just a
All
page,
right, thank
so
you,
that
sir.
I could sustain your attention throughout the presentation, and we don't get derailed from multiple slides. In case you didn't get what I said before now, I'm just trying to give a background to who am I and my experience. I said I have both experience in Nigeria as a doctor in public health, and I have some experience in Europe here the last 3 years too. So going to the meat of the matter, what do I think? But based on my experience on how we can become effective uh, early career researchers, and what should we be focusing on as early career researchers to become effective, keeping in mind that the nature of our environment in terms of the research environment we have in Nigeria, the opportunities, and the general social limitations we have in Nigeria. The first point I put up here is career or research goal. You must have a defined career or research goal. You must know what you want to do. For you to be attending this seminar or this webinar shows that you already have some interest in research. So your research is diverse. We have medical research, we have engineering research, we have research in so many the scientific endeavors. So you have to be clear of what you want to do in what area, and even in your area of endeavor, whether you're an engineer, you're a social scientist, you're in social science, or whatever you find yourself, There's also a niche, a specialty that you're interested in. This is what I mean by that's the first thing you must define. You must be sure of what you want to do, and you must have a goal. Why do you want to do research and what kind of research you want to do? It is very important. And I think it's not only just for this presentation, it's for every area of life. When you wake up every day, you have to have a goal for living, you have to have a goal for moving, you have to have a goal for eating. So the same thing applies in research. You have to have a goal that is specific to your career area of interest. That's the first thing. And as commonplace or as easy as common or trifle as it is, a lot of people don't get this right. And when you don't get this right, it's like the foundation, you miss it completely. For me, I'll be using myself as an example. I already know as a medical doctor, I don't want to practice in the clinic. I want to work at the population level. I want to practice as a public health doctor, that is making decision or making guidance for medical decisions or medical intervention at the population level, not at a single patient level, which is what we know the traditional doctor to be. So that is my career goal, and that has defined the kind of decision I took. Even when I finished medical school in Nigeria, I had to say, okay, I want to be a public health doctor. I have to write exams in that area. I have to go for specialization. Now that I'm doing research is like 50% of what I do. I do projects too. Now that I'm doing research, about 2, 3 years ago, I asked myself, what is my research goal? What area of research of infectious disease research am I interested in? I said, oh, antibiotic resistance. That has to do with the fact that the antibiotics, which are drugs that we use to treat infections in hospitals, in clinics, are no more effective, and it's a major research problem that the World Health Organization, the United Nations, everybody is looking at and pumping money into. So it is very, very important for us as early career researchers to understand clearly what is our career goal, what is our career direction. It's like a vision. You must be able to see it. That's the first clarity that you must have, and I think this applies to every area of life. The same thing with research. If you're a veterinary doctor or you're an accountant, you're interested in research, you're an economist, you're interested in research, you must define what aspect of your career are you interested in, because research is wide. You have to define this particular area that you want to focus on, and the earlier the better. Even though as early career researchers, you are looking for opportunities, you can still, you know, take the privilege of going into so many areas, diverse area in your career or your research area. But the earlier you are able to get hold of your research area and narrow your research to a particular area, the earlier you become an authority. And that is what you want in terms of personal fulfillment. You want that by the time you are 50 years old, you're a globally renowned authority in a particular area. So this is what I mean. It's very, very important. So we move to the second point, personal motivation and needs. Why do you want to become a researcher? Why do you want to do research in a particular area? And I've actually spoken to the issue of personal motivation in the respect. Research is a very rigorous endeavor. It's not like you go to work in the morning, fulfill, tick the dot, you know, maybe you're a banker, you attend to customers, and they want you do some transaction, and you go, you are ticking the dot. Research is not like that. Research is a very, very rigorous endeavor, because in research, you are trying to understand complex phenomena. You are trying to provide solutions to complex problems. So research needs a lot of personal motivation to become a good researcher. And what I mean by personal motivation, research takes time to yield results. Before you complete a research endeavor, it takes time. Some research takes as much as 3 years to complete. Some takes 4 years to complete. Some can go as short as 3 months, 6 months. And even at that, by the time you do research, you want to communicate your results, and you even writing the paper itself takes time. Sending it to journals, may take additional 6 months to 1 year before it gets published. They may even reject it. You reject your paper, it's part of what you expect. So to be a researcher requires a lot of motivation. You must be really, really motivated. And this is what I mean by personal motivation. It's not something that, if you are easily discouraged, you will not be a very good researcher. A good researcher must learn patience, hard work, must understand the rigor. And this is what I mean by personal motivation. So your personal motivation as an early career researcher must be hitting the ceiling, must be, with tearing. It must, the power and the motivation to stay put is very, very important for you to be an effective early career researcher. And when we talk about needs, I talk about personal need. Why do you want to be a researcher? You know, you must be something, you must have a goal at the end of the day. Like for me, I want to be an authority. I want to solve global problems. I want to be fulfilled as a doctor. I don't just want to be rich. I don't just want the prestige of being labeled or being called a medical doctor. I want to, make history as a medical doctor. So that's the kind of personal need that drives my motivation, or let me say my determination to, to think through, to walk through, and to push through, working on research and solving problems. Societal needs. As an African, no matter what your profession is, there are problems in so many areas of our social life, in terms of healthcare, in terms of finances, economy, if we talk about poverty, if we talk of social amenities, if we talk of our cultural development and cultural sophistication. So there is always a societal needs that research, uh, there is a societal needs that create gaps for research to solve. So you must define your personal motivation and needs. Why do you want to? You need this clarity to become an effective researcher, because these are the things that are going to sustain you. You're going to meet a lot of stumbling block as an early career researcher. Worse off in Nigeria. You understand what I mean. You know the research culture in Nigeria. You know the lack of resources to even make research interesting. Compared to developed world. So you need this motivation. You need to clarify what are the needs at the personal and at the societal level that you want to solve. It is when you think at this supra level, let me, or macro level, societal level, that you can actually connect, you know, a societal problem to your motivations. It's like we call it, is like a feedback loop. The societal problems drives your motivation, and you also have your motivation to be successful to solve the societal problems actually impact on the society itself in the long run. So it is very, very, very important for you to have a very high dose of motivation, to have a clarity of the need you are trying to solve as an early career researcher, uh, to become an effective early career researcher. And for me, I gave an example. I understood the times, the societal times. I knew that infectious disease, something called antimicrobial resistance, is the next big problem. Now we are talking of COVID, you're talking about Ebola as a doctor. Those problems have been there. We've been having pandemics since since the 18th century, since the 13th century, without plague, without cholera, without yellow fever. So there will always be, I know that. But beyond that, I have an understanding of my society that the next big problem that the society is going to face is antimicrobial resistance. And there's going to be a gap in terms of research. And that is my own motivation. That is the understanding of the need. I know that by the time antibiotics don't work anymore, modern medicine as you see it is going to collapse. It will be difficult for you to do cesarean section. It will be difficult for us to do surgery. It will be difficult for us to treat you if antibiotics don't work again, because antibiotics, they are the pillar of modern medicine. So and we're having problem with the effectiveness of these antibiotics. So I have a clear understanding of societal needs, and this inform the kind of research I do, the kind of research I become interested in, and it's sustaining my motivation, because I know if I continue working on antimicrobial resistance, antibiotic resistance, I'll be solving the present societal problem and the next big societal problem. So that's actually what I mean by personal motivation I need. So you have to, an effective early career researcher must understand the times that we are in. Then the next point I would like to talk about is training and opportunities. Very, very important. It is when you understand the personal need, you have a motivation and societal need that you want your research to address, you have your research goal. It is then that you can elaborate clearly. What am I training in? If I want to do this, what am I training in? For me, for example, when as in 2017, I left Nigeria, I was a senior registrar, a senior doctor registrar. For those that know what that means, senior resident doctor at UCH Ibadan. And I knew that I'm interested in antimicrobial resistance. I know I have training in this. If I want to solve research problem. I want to answer research questions around the effectiveness of antibiotics. I need training. Then I look around me. Where do I get this training? There are very limited opportunities in Nigeria. Then I knew I have to go for further. Where could like I knew I could get it in Europe. I looked for the opportunities. I pursued it. Luckily, I was able to get funding from the European Union. Then I came to Europe to do training in about 4 countries. I moved around France, Barcelona. I was in the University of Edinburgh. Then when I finished this training, general infectious disease, I said I must have some practical trainings too. Then I looked for opportunities. I wrote to the German Center for Disease Control. I like what they are doing there. And I wrote to them. And I was also lucky, I did internship there on this particular area of medicine that I'm interested in. So I identified my training needs. I look for the opportunities and I keyed into it. It is very, very essential. My research competence today is miles ahead of what it was 2, 3 years ago. And my situation is like this because I knew my training needs and I know and I try to identify the opportunity. So the same thing you must replicate in your own career, in your own life, in your own professional life. You must define what you want to do. You must identify what are the training needs for you to be able to do what you want to do. Then you must find the opportunities. And how do you do this? You do this by you've already started. You being a part of this webinar already showed that you have a longing that you want to satisfy. You are already looking for these opportunities. It's a form of training, and you have to just consolidate on this kind of opportunities. Talk to people, look for it. It is very, very, very important. Even beyond research, in any organization you find yourself, you need the hard and soft skills. By hard skills, I'm talking about technical skills. You want to be a researcher, an economist, you are a geographer, you need the technical knowledge. You need to read, you need to, to train yourself, and the soft skills, the networking skills, the communication skills, even looking for opportunities, it goes with a lot of skills. If you look at people that are winning scholarship, people that are winning grants, there are people that know how to look for opportunities. You know, I got 60,000 euros, for example, from the European Union because I knew how to look for this opportunity. It is very, very, these are soft skills you have to acquire, and I must commend you. Being in this webinar is a pointer to the fact that you already know also how to look for soft skills, communication skills, people skill, how to talk to people, how to network, and you will need a lot of this even in research because it's not only by your abilities, you need people, you need information, you need training. So it is very, very, very important that you continually, actively seek for opportunities, read, look out for training opportunities, look out for opportunities for you to have some practicum, to have experience, opportunities that directly speak to your needs, that directly speak to your career goals, that directly speak to your personal motivation and your needs, your research needs, both at the personal level and at societal level. It is very, 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 very important. I know as Nigerians there are limited training and opportunities, but even within Nigeria, for those of you that are active in searching for these training opportunities, you're going to be far ahead of people that are not. As limited as our research culture and our research environment is in terms of opportunities, you find out that even in Nigeria, some people are still doing stuffs. Like what Leonard is doing is already solving a problem. He has identified a problem that maybe research competence or the research agenda for or research mentorship for early career researcher is very limited in Nigeria. And he's keying into that. He keyed into that, identified a problem, and is trying to solve a problem. For example, through this webinar. That's an excellent way to go about it. And if you look at it, he has also identified who are the kind of people that can solve this, but that I can work with. And that's how I don't know Leonardo until about 2, 3 months ago. Maybe I don't know how he got me. He searched for people that he thinks can provide opportunity or can solve a problem that he has. And it's the same approach you must put into it. As limited as things may be in Nigeria in terms of research opportunity or scientific practice opportunities, there are still a couple of people that are doing excellent research work, bringing grants into Nigeria, doing quality research that you could benefit for. If you're in the university or you are working somewhere, you in a research institution, you must look for people that are doing quality research that you want to be like. They will have opportunities for you to train, an opportunity for you to enhance your competence in terms of research. It may be crude, or it may be at the level of what we are doing in Nigeria, or may be limited by the fact that you're in Africa. But I bet you some of those opportunities are still going to open doors for you at the international level in the future. It is very, very important. I may not have the time to go into the nitty gritty of this because I don't want to personalize this speech. I just want to make it general. But you could see from the tone I was speaking, and that's why I did not bring in multiple slides. I want it to be original. I want it to be based on my experience, based on what I've seen in Nigeria and outside Nigeria. By the time you key into local opportunities, it opens doors at the international level. And that is what is separates you because the kind of opportunity you're going to be getting, international opportunity you're going to be getting, even as Nigeria African is like maybe they have 20 or 50 slots and they want the best from Africa. It is the little things you've done back home that will separate you from people that have not done anything. So you must be very active, you must be very determined, you must be very intentional about seeking, identifying your training needs, very important, and the opportunities to meet to answer those training needs. So I'd like to move to another point, and the fourth point, the next point I want to talk about is understanding your research needs. I'm assuming that you have defined your research goal, you have defined your career direction, and you are having a clearer idea. You will not have a clear idea completely. It evolves, but at least you start from somewhere. Even for me, I may be a bit ahead of some people or maybe colleagues at this stage. Everybody evolves, even after 10 years, 15 years in research, you evolve. So understanding your research niche means that you must understand what is going on. It is when you have a very clear understanding of what is happening in that research area, what is the direction in terms of even opportunities. Are there going to be funding for this research in the next 5, 10 years? Is it going to be the top 10, for example, as medical doctors, I want to know, is it going to be the top 10 issues my research area is going to be top 10 issues that government, that multilateral organizations like WHO, like United Nations, philanthropic organizations, private foundations are going to be funding? Because it is not all issues in medicine or in healthcare that are priority issues for the world. So you must understand your research need. And even aside funding, aside opportunity, you must also understand in what direction, what are the kind of research we are doing. For example, artificial intelligence is a big deal. Robotic medicine is a big deal. Data science is a big deal. We are dealing with a lot of data intelligence. So even for me as an infectious disease practitioner, I understood that the future is data, even for infectious diseases. The future is automation. The future is artificial intelligence. The future is networking in terms of data network. So you have to understand what are the latest things that are doing in your area. Because your research must be compatible with the realities of the world. It must be compatible with the reality of whatever environment you are trying to, or whatever problem you are trying to solve with your research. That's what I mean by understanding your research need. Also, it also include who are the main players, apart from the direction that research in that area is going, who are the main players in that research. It even speaks to where can you get the opportunities, who can you collaborate with, who are the kind of people you must look out for to collaborate with, what are the kind of research questions you must be attacking, your research must be tackling that you are interested in. I may not be able to speak specifically to your researcher because I know you are diverse, you are from diverse background. I'm just a medical doctor. Some of you, many of you may not even be in the health sector. But these principles hold the same for every area of research endeavor. So it's very, very important you understand your research in terms of funding, in terms of the people, in terms of the trajectory of research, in terms of the outlook and the future outlook of research in that area is very, very important, for you to actually be an effective early career researcher. You must be doing the kind of research that is speaking to the 21st century problems. You understand? Even though it's possible, like let me say, we are most of you are Nigerians, so I can say this, and these are open secrets. The kind of education that many of us received might not be speaking to the current problems. And that's why we are not able to, so we are not trained, you know, to do research or to think or conceptualize problem that are relevant to the current state of the society. But you, even though your environment be mutant, the world is globalized. Let me use that word. You can get a lot of training online. You don't have to be limited by what you are taught in the classroom. Everything is online now. Everything. Some you may have to put some money on ground to solve it, to access it rather. But really, the world is so globalized. Education is beyond the four walls of classroom. So the opportunities are there. There are little or no excuses for anybody in any corner of the world these days. Another point is that the global environment is changing, and I've spoken to this in terms of the workplace, the problems we are facing, whatever area of research you are looking at, in terms of even how to access resources, either training resources, either financial resources, either educational resources, or even research competence resources. So there's a need for networking. Very, very important. You should not be limited by the fact that you are in OAU, or you are in a university and you cannot talk to your lecturer. You can't sit down with your lecturer. Your lecturer don't see you as good enough to do research. You don't have to wait for your lecturers. You could network with people online. You could look for the kind of, as long as you have something to offer, and there's nobody that will not listen to you. People will listen to you. It's the idea that matter. It's the clarity of the idea. So as to you, for you to be an effective early career researcher, networking must be very, very is very, very important. Let me give an example of myself, maybe to drive the point home. I work for the German government, so most of my I just started my early career researcher. So most of my research, or those that are even in the pipeline, are focused on Europe or the world at large. But I'm African, and I understand clearly the challenges that Africa or Nigeria faces. So, and I want my research I don't want to wait till I become a big authority when I can do things on my own to start tackling the issue of Africa. I know that even now I could devote some of my time and some of the skills I'm getting, I could already devote it to the challenges of Africa. I have a very clear understanding of the problems of healthcare in Africa, for example, but how to tackle it and how to go about conceptualizing research or solutions to the problem is what I'm just acquiring. But now that I'm acquiring a 360 degree overview of research itself, and I've actually solved a lot of training need, I've actually, identified and gotten the competence that I need. I could start speaking. I could start using some of my time to speak to the problems in Africa. And what do I do? Most of my research, some of my research that will be coming out in the next 6 months, 3 months to 1 year, or that have already been submitted for many of these journals, are focused. Some of them are about 30 to 40% are focused on Africa. And what did I do? Even if I work for an organization that is not so much interested in Africa, they are focused on Europe, Germany, Europe, and the world as a whole. Even if my office does not focus on Africa, I have the competence. I am already doing something on Africa. And how am I doing it? What I do, what I did rather, is to search for early career researchers like me that are of African origin, that are also in diaspora, and some back in Nigeria, and tell them, guys, you have the competence, I have this competence. If you make this competence, we can speak to this problem in Nigeria. That's what we are doing, even though I'm focused on it. So I'm working with veterinarians from Cambridge University that are Nigerians. And if you look at, I have a paper on COVID that we wrote earlier in the year, and about three that are coming on COVID. All of us are early career researchers. 90% of us are Nigerians, some are in the US, some are in UCH, and some are in UI. I'm talking about 15 to 20 early careers. I met many of them via LinkedIn. I just see, oh, this early career in Nigeria is doing well. Okay, all right, guys, we could do this. It is very, very important because, and that's research. And even in research, forget the African problems that we're trying to solve. Research generally, wherever you find yourself, need people. And that's why you see research, because you need the ideas. Research always tries to solve complex problems. So we always need people. We always lean on others. You may be strong in an area, and somebody comes from another perspective. And that's how you are able to solve problems, you are able to provide robust conceptualization to problems, to social problems or earth problems. And even it's and like I mentioned, research is very broad, very, very broad. So you need to not to overwork yourself, but to make the work easier. You need people, you need perspective. Like just before I joined this meeting, I was telling you that I'm in a meeting with some of my colleagues, some of my classmates, some of them are PhD students in the UK. Some are already working with NIH, some are from Nigeria. We are looking at African Development Bank roll out a proposal. When I have 5 minutes, please just type and let me know. 2 minutes or if my time has finished. They submitted the proposal a few days
Yeah.
ago for researchers to send in papers on how COVID-19 has impacted economically Africa. And we are looking at it and say we need to also submit. Most of us are doctors, pharmacists, people in the health sector, and we want to speak to how COVID-19 has impacted the public health system and the economic angle. Then we realize there that we want to speak some economic time. We want to translate this impact in terms of maybe access to healthcare, or in terms of people not being able to, cancer patients, they are people not really to access hospital because the hospital is shut down or doctors are not attending to general patients or health affected vaccines. We realize that we need an economist and we are shopping for early career economics now, networking to ensure that our paper is foolproof and is solid enough. So those are the kind of networking you need. Identify the problem. You have to network. By the time you network, you leverage on other people's competence. Your works become easier. You learn from their perspective. You become a more rounded researcher. It is extremely important. Slide. I would like to see the last point, please. Okay. So I think the last point is that you should anticipate challenges in research. In any endeavor, challenges will always come up. I've talked about career goals, I've talked about training needs, identifying opportunities, networking. All these things are easy to say. It's more difficult when it comes to operationalizing it. So that's what I mean by anticipate challenges. There will be challenges. Or you maybe, for example, you've identified that you need a resource, you've gotten online, and you need money. It may be financial challenge, it may be the fact that you are trying to get a grant and you are failing at it, maybe that you are not seeing the right mentors that you want or a research area that you want to work on, and nobody in your locality is actually doing something, the kind of work, actually working on that and are trying to network. Yeah, there'll be so many challenges, just like in life, there's always challenges. But for you to be here, you already knows that challenges are nothing to be afraid of. Challenges are things to face frontally. So you must, in all your planning, make your planning realistic, make your target realistic, and when you anticipate challenge, and when the challenge comes, it makes it less strenuous for you, less discouraging because you already anticipate it. In anticipation, you probably will have, thought of one or two ways to actually, counter or minimize the challenge. So it is very, very important that it's going to be a rough journey, but the roughness polishes you to become better. For every rough encounter you have, you're going to become better for it. I know that most of the principles I've highlighted today are a bit theoretical, but they are universal principles. They are what I've used at work. They are what I think you need, and the nitty-gritty of many of the points I've mentioned will take time. There are things you experience as you go on in your career as early career researcher. Some of the points I've mentioned, you still need to sit down with Leona, sit down with other people, or even with your colleagues, and you get more tips, more knowledge, more advice, more mentorship. So I know it's a long process. I know it's not something that is easy, but that's a general overview of what I think you need to be an effective early career researcher. And you must also, lastly, if you are in Nigeria and most of the research are focused on Nigeria, understand the situation of things in Nigeria from the social beyond even your area of expertise. You must understand what is going on in Nigeria because as a researcher, you will be able to integrate information. For example, I'm a medical doctor. By follow news, I have to follow news. I'm a public health doctor. I have to follow everything because everything has a public health dimension. So you must be very, very, very socially aware, beyond self-awareness, beyond being emotional intelligent, beyond having IQ, beyond having the technical competence. You must be socially aware. It's very, very important to be an effective early career researcher. Thank you very much, and I would like to stop here. I can't hear you. Well, can you hear me?
Sorry, my mic was actually muted. Sorry. My
It's fine.
mic was muted. So was actually saying that I want to quickly bring every other panelist up so that I'll just quickly introduce each of them so that the next person will come up. Dr. Grace A. John Ugwanya she is equally a researcher here in Nigeria. She presently lead effort for Medbrew Medical Services in Lagos. She's leading the molecular diagnostic for COVID efforts in that organization. While Idris Nasiru Adulai lectures at Ahmadu Bello University at the Department of Medical Laboratory Sciences. He is equally a virologist. At present, he has equally published a lot of articles on the present COVID and in a very number of good journals. So he will equally be speaking to us now. So I also want to quickly, I know some of us were not online when Dr. Olaniyi Abayomi came up. He's a medical infectious epidemiologist at Robert Hooke Institute in Germany. So I want to welcome all of us to this question. So I'm going to take Dr. Grace out now, then Dr. Olani too out, then so that Idris Nasiru can come up with his presentation. I want to beg if we can actually make the presentation a bit the time so that we'll be able to meet up with the time that we have allocated to each of us. So I will bring up Idris now to take course. So Idris, the floor is yours. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. Good evening, everyone, and thank you for having me. First of all, I would like to thank Mr. Leonard for this wonderful platform with very good intention, because I believe not every young investigator in Nigeria actually have this mentality, actually have this idea of pulling together good brains to see how they could actually mentor and then guide younger ones on research. I would like to say a very big kudos to you. Thank you for this for this hard work, and I pray and I hope that this thing will be sustained. Quickly, I would like to share my slide.
Okay. Can you share from your side? Is it possible?
I am thinking of doing that. Okay. What I will do, let me just send God some updates on the one I sent to you today. Let me quickly just forward it to you once again.
Okay, you can just continue. You can send it so that I will
or
share
better
the
still,
screen on your behalf. Okay.
All right, just give me a minute. A minute, please.
Okay. All right. If it's not possible, you can just you can go on with the presentation. Then later I will share across the slide so that we won't waste so much of it now. Hello. 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 Hello, can you hear me? Idris, can you hear me, sir? Hello, sir. Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. I'm back.
Okay,
I've sent it to your
okay,
WhatsApp.
fine.
I don't know whether you receive it.
Okay, just go on with the presentation, then I will try to
All
download it
right.
now.
Here with
Okay,
me, I think I have a kind of the outline with me. For the purposes of
okay,
this
sir.
presentation, I think we will be focusing almost say 30% of the content of my presentation have actually been uh, said by the earlier presenter, talking about research agenda, talking about uh, what it takes for a young career investigator to actually succeed, to actually move adequately in the research discipline. Yeah, actually said majority, about 30% of it. But personally, or basically, I'm a biomedical scientist and I have a kind of a little bias on virology. And for the purpose of today's presentation, I'll be kind of the more biased towards viruses, more especially the viruses that has been ravaging the world. That is the coronavirus itself, that is the severe acute respiratory syndrome, coronavirus 2, which is the etiological agent for COVID-19. With me here, I have a background for the presentation. Then I also have a section that tries to look at who is this, even this early career investigator. Then quickly we'll swing into trying to talk about research career opportunities that are available for these investigators. Then where we'll dwell more particular about the various ways these investigators can harness opportunities in biomedicine and biomedical sciences, more especially in terms of diagnostic aspect and then epidemiology and vaccine production. As a kind of background to this, we know that a good career agenda is a critical dimension in the creation of knowledge that normally is a starting point for individual researchers' interests so that you can actually elucidate so many phenomena, trying to look at different things. As we know, research is a very broad term that actually encompasses several things. And it normally dwell on topical things that are actually unknowns, intrinsic and then extrinsic factors that are actually uh, motivating these phenomena. And the ambition, I also try to look at the ambition and scope of what the research behavior can actually bring. Indeed, a clear research agenda serves two main purposes. That's the first one is to help communicate to others about your skills, your expertise, and it also serve to guide your decision making about what projects to pursue in the future. As we all know, there are so many opportunities, and it's very necessary that a young investigator or a young researcher look at these opportunities, lay hands on the ones that are actually feasible to him, harness it properly, and actually make good use of the opportunity. It actually isn't advisable that a researcher should actually look at everything or try to work on everything. There's this popular saying that jack of all trades is actually master of none. So trying to talk about the issue of specialization, issue of giving more interest to a particular subsection of a discipline. Then for the purpose of this section, the main objective of this section is to better understand how to set and harness this research agenda in medicine and biomedical sciences. And I'll give much more interest to COVID-19 pandemic. As I said earlier on, I'm a virologist. Of course, I'll be giving more attention to viruses. And the latest virus so far in the world is the coronavirus. So now let's look at who is an early career investigator. We've been hearing about early career investigator, early career researcher, young investigator, young researcher, young scientist. Actually, for the purpose of international definition, a researcher whose career actually spun a period of less than 5 years between the dates he acquired the MD degree or PharmD or a PhD or a similar experience is actually classified to be an early career investigator. But this definition varies by country by country. Some people, they believe until you have an MD degree or a PhD, you aren't qualified to be a researcher or you aren't qualified to be an investigator. But as we all know in Nigeria, this definition may not actually apply. Otherwise, you come to realize that so many people that actually felt they are researchers or they're investigators can't actually, fit to this criteria. Now, quickly, let's look at various forms of research opportunities that are available for early career investigators. For the purpose of this presentation, I think I make it into three broad forms. It's either you talk about the basic sciences, which is largely what we do in Nigeria and West Africa, whereby we do reported sciences. Reporting in the sense that you only try to look at a process on an entity or a phenomenon to see whether it's present or it is not, or otherwise. That's reporting science. It's a basic science. Talk about anatomy, talk about biochemistry. Basic biochemistry, talk about basic anatomy, basic virology, seroprevalence, talk about detecting antibodies, and these are just nothing but reported sciences or basic sciences. And when you look at the clinical sciences, it's more about human medicine or veterinary medicine, where physicians try to investigate their clients or their patients to see the presence or absence of a particular ailment based on laid down criteria for these ailments or diseases or even infection. Then the hallmark of research or at the pinnacle of research is what we have in translational or implementation research. This is where you combine the basic science and clinical science, just as the name implies, translational, meaning you are translating whatever you are able to report, whatever you are able to observe, whatever you are able to see in patients, to see in the population. You are trying to translate it into how it will be applied to the community, to the population, to the patient, and so on and so forth. For instance, before you start talking about vaccination, vaccination or vaccine discovery is translational research or implementation research. And before you start talking about producing vaccines, there are a lot of processes that it has to pass through, from basic investigation, preclinical investigation to clinical investigation. It is from all these phases that actually culminate into producing an accepted, efficacious, potent, and then safe vaccine. And there are other forms of translational research which will also involve, or which can also include test development or fabrication or production of diagnostic devices, diagnostic test kits, test strips, and so on and so forth. They are translation in the sense that you harness some ideologies or some ideas in basic immunology and see how this knowledge can actually be put in place, how this knowledge can actually be used in the diagnostic arm of clinical medicine or even veterinary medicine. So now let's look at strategies that you can actually use in defining a research agenda. First thing is that many people in Nigeria, they always feel that it's too late, I'm too old, I don't have an MSc, I don't have a PhD, and so on and so forth. One thing that I believe is that it's never too late or it's never too early to begin a research agenda. And even if you begin, you should not be static. It should not be considered to be a static thing. Don't say that now I've achieved what I need to achieve. I've gotten a scholarship, I've gotten fellowship, and so on and so forth. Therefore, now I'm okay. I'm no more going to further my career, and so on and so forth. Research agenda is something that's always in continuum. It's always dynamic. There's no research doesn't finish. It doesn't finish. The moment you begin to feel that you are done or this is the end, it means that something must be wrong. Because one thing with research is that the more you investigate, the more you read, the more you look into something in depth, the more you unravel so many things. And then another thing is that you have to pay attention to topics that actually interest you most. Don't say because we have COVID-19 now, everybody's doing COVID-19 research. Me too, I want to do COVID-19 research. Whereas you are, maybe you are in hematology, or maybe you are in surgery, or maybe you are in let's say ophthalmology. You shouldn't say that because everybody is doing COVID-19 research now, you too, you have to do it because that is what is in vogue, that is what is happening now. No, actually, you have to, as a good early career investigator, your research agenda should be tailored down to something that interests you most. And you have to also look at how you could discover new ideas through reading literature. Literature, there are so many literature. You know, one thing is that you have to be current in the kind of search you do. For instance, if you are working on, let's say West Nile virus, or even a surgical procedure, you have to be reading literature that actually resets, say between 2016 to 2020. It wouldn't be wise for an early career investigator to start thinking of reading things that are published, 2000, even some 1990, and so on and so forth. You have to discover new ideas, but it's only when you read recent literature that you can actually discover new ideas. And these ideas that you get from literature, when you combine them with the practical skills or the field-based experience that you have as a practitioner, either as a physician, either as a medical lab scientist, or even a pharmacist, when you combine them with what you see in clinic or what you experience in field, to give a very cool, thing to do. Then lastly, as an early career investigator, your research idea or research agenda should be something that you shouldn't be afraid to test drive it in some area of interest. For instance, you actually have idea of how to you have been nursing an idea of how to develop a rapid test kit. You shouldn't be afraid of you shouldn't be afraid of test running whether this idea is actually feasible. And people will be wondering, how do you test run it? Yeah, you test run by either discussing with some people that you are trusted, people of like minds, people that you know they can actually give you advice, or they can actually encourage you, or people that can actually support you, and so on and so forth. And you can also test run these ideas or this research interest by trying to see whether you can actually put something down, because these days there's this thing we call meta-analysis and systematic review. You can actually test run this idea by trying to pull some data together, write out a little manuscript out of it, then write it properly. There's a set protocol for all this writing, and so on and so forth. Submit it for any journal. Look at the way the reviewers criticize this your write-up, and from there you have idea whether this idea you have, or whether this area of interest you have is actually sellable, or is actually worth doing. Then how do you put this idea into action? Once you determine your topic of interest, the action you take are what solidify your idea agenda. For instance, if you can't, there's no way you say you have so idea, you know how to do this, you know how to do that, but you are not putting it into, you're not actualizing it, you are not actually. Then what do you have to actually put them into action? It's only when you put all these ideas you have, or this interest you have, into action that can actually solidify your agenda. For instance, I talked about the issue of conducting a systematic or meta-analytical review. As we all know, there are so many things that are entailed in research. Excuse me. There are so many things that are entailed in research. Of great importance to us in Nigeria is the financial aspect. So many of us in Nigeria actually have good idea, good topics, and so on and so forth. But a major thing that have been hindering so many good brains or good ideas in Nigeria is the finances. So relatively, systematic review is something that won't even cost you anything, even though it costs it won't be that much. The only thing that you spend in systematic review is just the expenses you may incur in data through browsing, and so on and so forth. So you can start from there. This is a way of actualizing or starting or implement, or let me even say, test running this your idea. And there are two key ways to accomplish this. How do you accomplish this test running of this your idea, or putting this your idea into action? The first one is to conduct research in areas that are focused to your research agenda. For instance, as I said earlier on, if you're an ophthalmologist, you should be conducting research that have bias to eye health and then illnesses. And another thing is that you disseminate the product of this your research agenda. For instance, after you are done with this meta-analysis or whatever you are able to write down, you disseminate the product, you publicize it by what? By submitting to a journal for peer review and publication, or better still, you could even submit the abstract for any of these local conferences or workshops for presentation. It might entice some people. It can even give you more opportunities. It can even help you in networking with people that actually have the same ideology with what you do. And these are some general tips to consider when you are actually trying to draft out your research agenda. First thing is that you have to use your research agenda as a roadmap. You should have a defined, roadmap on what do you want to do, how do you need to do it, and how do you intend to achieve it. Another thing is that you have to develop an infrastructure for this. For instance, what do you need in achieving this your research agenda? Do you need equipment? Do you need connection? Do you need most important for the infrastructure is equipment. For instance, we as medical laboratory scientists, most of our research heavily rely on equipment, laboratory technology, laboratory equipment technology. Talk about the machines that we use for testing samples and so on and so forth. You have to develop kind of a framework of how does this equipment need to be by using what is obtainable globally. I'm talking about global best practice. There's no way people are talking about RT-PCR, molecular biology. You are still talking about a cultural way of isolating bacteria or cultural way of identifying bacteria. When now we have so many, molecular-based tests, even at your fingertips. Then another thing you have to do is to get connected. You have to network. For instance, no man is an island of his own. And there's this popular saying that if you really want to go far in life, you move together with people of like minds and with sincerity of purpose. That if you really want to go fast and then get truncated on the road, then you go alone. That's the idea of getting connected with people and network with people. And this networking depends on skills again. You need to have some kind of skills. There's this networking skills, this connectivity skills that a young career investigator need to have in order to develop. And this skill is something that you just don't have it overnight. It's something that you develop over time. It's something, that the most important thing is for someone to be humble, be stopped on the area. You should know at least 67 to 70% of what you intend to do. And before you approach anybody, or before you try to network with anybody, try to have at least 70 or 60 to 70% of what you ought to know in that discipline or what you ought to know in that research area. And then you should be humble. You should be, another thing that you need to do to learn in developing a good networking skill is you should have courtesy, and you should be respectful, and you should also be social. Yeah, so to say, be social. For instance, if you meet some professors, maybe foreign professors in international conferences, there's no way you just bash to them and start saying that I want to work with you, blah 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 blah. No, there's a way you do that as an early career investigator or early career researcher. All these skills are something that you learn, that you develop over time. Although they might sound easy or simple, but it's actually not easy or simple. It's something that that need to be built upon over time. Another thing is time and commitment. Research is not actually it's not the same to our routine day-to-day activity we do in the hospital, like say clerking of patients, treating patients, surgical procedure, laboratory procedure. It's different in time. You have to carve out time for your research agenda, and you also have to be committed. Some people, they actually have time, ample amount of time for this research, but they are not committed. If you give them any, if they have any good, idea, the idea ends up not being done because they are not actually committed to their research. Because these two things, they work hand in hand. You have to be committed, and then you have to be dedicated as well. Some people, they get frustrated along the way, in the sense that something might happen along the way and they get frustrated, then they lost the morale. There's no more morale for the research, and so on and so on. We'll look at it later as we go on. Then, as I said earlier on, for the purpose of this presentation, we're talking about COVID-19. I just want to talk about some areas in COVID-19 biomedical interventions that early career investigators can actually lay their hands into. these are being arranged in order of their relevance, or in order of their relevance, starting from the least, to the best. However, I'm not saying any of them is not important, but the first thing that you need to talk about in COVID-19 biomedical interventions is diagnostics. It's only when you have an accurate diagnosis, an adequate, accurate, and then coordinated diagnosis that you can actually start talking about having good data. This data is what you use for epidemiological profiling of epidemiological to study the epidemiological pattern of this disease or infection in the population. It's only when you have good diagnosis, you have good epidemiological data, and if there are treatment available for it. For instance, COVID-19, we have treatments. We have antiviral treatment for COVID-19. That's when you start talking about treatments. Then, if treatment is still not working properly as it should be, for instance, for this COVID-19, there is treatment, but then, as we see and as we know, this thing is rising day in, day out. Then the next option is vaccination. Mind you, there is still so many loopholes in diagnosis of COVID-19, epidemiology of COVID-19, treatment of COVID-19, and even vaccine discovery of COVID-19. Hence, early career investigators can actually key into all these four interventional processes to see how they could actually make use of these opportunities for their development. For diagnostic purposes, I classified it into two. It's either you have serological or you have nucleic acid amplification tests. I arrange them in accordance to their detailedness, or to the standardization, in the sense that in hierarchy of their of their reliability. For instance, for serological assays for COVID-19, the most advanced among all of them is the plaque reduction test. It's a gold standard in serology for SARS-CoV-2. Then we have the CLI, that's the chemiluminescence immunosorbent assay. Then we have the ELISA, the normal ELISA. We have the LFA, the lateral flow assay, that is the immunochromatography tests. Then for the nucleic acid amplification tests, we have the whole genome sequencing. Mostly it's used for mutation surveillance, where you try to look at the full-length genome of the pathogen to see whether there are some changes in the nucleic acid sequences or the protein sequences. And from there, you know if there is changes, it could be mutation. If it's mutation, then that's where you classify the mutation. Is it nuisance, nonsense, silence, major mutation, and so on and so forth. We have the RT-PCR. The RT-PCR so far is the gold standard for diagnosing COVID-19. Yes, it's available everywhere in the world. Even in Nigeria, the government have been trying to see that it upscale the testing capacity using RT-PCR. Then let's look at the opportunities that are actually available for serological device production. As we know, this COVID-19 test is not something that is going to be sustainable in Nigeria using the RT-PCR, because it's very expensive, it's laborious, it has a long turnaround time, and I was made to know that some days ago the WHO actually proclaimed that it has approved two serological devices for diagnosing and then for the epidemiological survey of COVID-19. We can actually, the young investigators can actually key into this area whereby they could actually participate in this device production and evaluation. When we talk about these devices, it is either you talk about serology, ELISA, or the lateral flow assay. The ELISA is a kind of 96 well placed protocol whereby you test the presence of antibodies or even antigen in the serum, plasma, or any other specimen of the patient or of the client. Similarly, for the lateral flow assay, is a kind of cassette device that we normally use for testing, just like the HIV test strips. These are things that can actually be produced. These are things that early career investigators can actually key into, look how or see how they can actually develop this in-house or locally in Nigeria. It's going to help us. It's going to help us because it's going to create more employment opportunity. It's going to make the investigators to be prominent in Nigeria and even international community. It's also going to help in ameliorating the health economical impact of these diagnostic devices. Then, aside from producing or fabricating these devices, another thing that is very important is to validate them. One thing is to produce or fabricate a device, another thing is to validate them. We normally call this thing the EQA, that's the external quality assurance. EQA is actually used to confirm the accuracy of diagnostic tests. And then the EQA providers, what happens is that they deliver blind samples to EQA trained researchers, whereby they evaluate this product to measure their sensitivity, specificity, positive predictive value, the negative predictive value in comparison to a gold standard. And the gold standard usually is the RT-PCR or the plaque reduction utilization test. There's another opportunity in genomics and bioinformatics for COVID-19. As we know, genomics is the last resort for all life sciences investigation. There are ample opportunities there for young career investigators, whereby you actually analyze the homology or the relatedness of species and molecules to trace the history of molecular spread of SARS-CoV-2, so that we can actually look at whether there are changes in the virus using phylogenetics. From this, you can have insight into the pattern of sequences modification in the viruses to detect selective failure in the genome. For instance, there are so many reports all over the world, even in Nigeria here, Professor Christian Happy were able to report that mutations have taken place in these viruses and so on and so forth. It's by the help of this genomical analysis of informatical studies that they were able to track these mutations. Young scientists can actually go into that. Early career investigators can actually go into that aspect of research. The other thing is to look at how do these bioinformatics help to trace the origin of a viral epidemic or a pandemic. For instance, there is this claim all over the world earlier during the pandemic, when the pandemic came up, that the virus actually originated from the laboratories. People said, no, it wasn't actually natural selection, but it's actually from the lab. It was fabricated in the laboratory. It was by the help of these bioinformatical tools or softwares that you were able to actually refute that claim that it actually originated from the laboratory. As you can see, it was published by Hoa et al., whereby they used these bioinformatical softwares or analysis to actually see whether to trace the alignment of the sequences of the S protein for this SARS-CoV-2 to see if it's actually relating to other, other viruses, related viruses such as SARS-CoV-1, MERS-CoV, and so on and so forth. It is from this analysis of the relatedness of these viruses that they were able to know, or they were able to confirm that it wasn't actually from the laboratory. There are some, these are some tools or some softwares that we use in bioinformatics. For instance, a notable one is the PanBio software. What you just need to do is to go to the NCBI. There are so many databases. You look at sequences of this because once a pathogen has been sequenced, it's normally been deposited in the NCBI or some other databases. You go there, take the sequences, you insert it into your software, and from there you will be able to know whether it's aligned adequately with what is known about the viruses genomically. Then I'll talk about sequence homology.
Yeah, Dr. Idris, because of time, we have about 3 minutes to go so that the next person can come up. Thank you, sir. Sorry to butt in there.
It's okay, there's no problem. Let me just round up. So as we know, there are some other procedures, or there are some other upcoming area of research interest, the mathematical modeling, that is the mathematical epidemiological analysis for viruses, and there are some areas that is of great importance for us these days is the vaccine production, whereby you produce vaccines that are preventive, those that are not infected, that didn't have prior infection, can actually be protected from infection. Now let's look at challenges that can actually be dealt with research in Nigeria. First thing is inadequate skills and technical know-how, poor retraining, poor equipment technology, low morale and commitment, as I said earlier on, poor remuneration, and then lengthy bureaucratic processes. This research needs some ethical procedure application and so on and so forth. Then in conclusion, we can say that there are so many research opportunities for early career investigators, and that they need to continuously harness these offers. And the local development of biomedical integration is what considered by early career investigators. As a recommendation to this, it's good to develop personal capacities and then skills to meet technical demands, to collaborate interdisciplinary institutionally to develop quality research products. And government and NGOs should provide enabling environment. And if government can provide this, then it's advisable that researchers should scout for foreign grants and then fellowship. Thank you very much.
Hello, Dr. Grace. Dr. Grace. Hello. Hello, Dr. Grace. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Dr. Grace will be taking note further, so she will be taking note on how to conceptualize research idea and the like. So Dr. Grace, she's a pharmaceutical microbiologist, and equally she's a medical lab scientist by profession. She's equally a molecular scientist. Presently, she's leading effort in Lagos and a facility on the training of medical lab professional. She is equally into capacity building. So I want us to welcome Dr. Grace as I yield the floor to her now. Over to you, ma'am.
Oh, thank you. Good evening, everyone. I am Dr. Grace, as he's introduced, and it's been a privilege to come here this evening and be a part of this meeting organized by the Research Hub. Thanks for our amazing facilitators that have shared vital information, vital knowledge, especially when it has to do with research in Nigeria, research internationally, and taking advantage of the pandemic that happened in Nigeria and how we can be able to harness the opportunities that this has presented to us. I'm supposed to be speaking on conceptualizing research in problem solving. We all know Dr. Olaniyi talked quite broadly on research and opportunities internationally and how we can marry that into what is obtainable in Africa and in Nigeria specifically, which is our home country. And I'll just be talking on a broad perspective in research and problem solving. Mr. Leonard will be sharing the slides as I progress. I am a medical laboratory scientist, as is explained. I did my PhD in pharmaceutical microbiology, and it's just been quite a broad diversification in field. On this first slide, I'll be talking about research. The next slide, please. I'll be talking about research. And what's research? We know the term. We are very familiar with the term research, but it has to do with the creation of new knowledge. All the use of existing knowledge most times is an interplay between the two. the creation of new knowledge based on experiences, based on events, based on personal expertise. So our ability to marry the two, our ability to create new knowledge and use what is existing to create something new is what will either make you a sought after researcher or to be numbered among the crowd. So we are not in a phase of competition. All we are doing as early career researchers is to add our own bits, share our own knowledge, share our own expertise, bring in the idea I have, another person brings in his or hers. From what Dr. Olaniyi said, collaborative effort to do something that is worthwhile, especially from our perspective as researchers in Africa. So know that for every kind of research you're doing, you're either creating a new phase of knowledge that has not been known before or is still underdeveloped, and you create a new perspective to it, or you use what is presently available. We are in an era, especially in biotechnology, where we've had lots of advancement in medicine, lots of advancement in robotic medicine, lots of advancement in artificial intelligence. And even though we have been restricted to medicine or medical laboratory sciences or pharmacy or our respective medical fields, we know that technology has crept into our field faster than we are even ready for. And it's not a function of, I don't like tech. You must like tech, whether you like it or not, if you want to still be relevant in the course of the years. So for us, we have to begin to look at research. I know I'm not a tech, I wouldn't say I'm not a tech savvy person. I don't like all the whole programming and software part of technology. That's not my strength. It's not my field, but I don't fancy that. But even though we have a broad perspective when it comes to technology, when it comes to research, when it comes to biotechnology, we can't limit ourselves, we can't limit our knowledge to what we have been used to, the status quo. We have to begin to find ways to harness what is obtainable now and how we can leverage on new knowledge to be relevant. I'm talking about new knowledge because medicine or medical laboratory sciences or laboratory medicine, whatever terminology is being used, is moving at a fast pace than we are even ready for. In Africa, specifically Nigeria as a case study, the pandemic took many of us unawares. The expertise needed in handling the COVID-19 testing revealed a loophole in some fields that would have been at the forefront in combating the pandemic in Nigeria. And yes, I had to be part of the COVID response team in a few organizations. And I just discovered that we have to reach a point where we just begin to break out beyond what we are used to if we want to keep becoming relevant in our field. Understand that we have research as the creation of new knowledge and the use of existing knowledge. But how far we go, how far we progress, how far we become relevant depends on how we progress. What's the aim of research? The aim of research is for us to generate new concepts, find new methods, new methodologies, create and update knowledge. So it's metamorphosing. It's a continuous process. I can't say because I generated new concept last year and that's okay. No, there is something new. There is something else that we can do to keep being relevant. There is something new to keep being relevant. And until we understand that research on its own, research on a broader scale is beyond just being in the lab, following some standard operating procedures and bringing out a result, is much more than that. What concept am I creating? What new technology am I implementing? What am I bringing into the table that has not been done before or has been done, but what modifications am I bringing that will make my work unique and make it something that people would want to read and have a second thought and look for newer ways? Will your research update knowledge or create new patterns or new pathways Our last speaker talked about the real-time qPCR and its relevance in COVID-19 testing and all that all the other factors that surrounds the COVID pandemic. Dr. Olani talked about how he's been able to collaborate with researchers in different fields, in different locations, and even though he's presently not based in the country, he's still releasing journals and doing lots of manuscript presentation submissions on work related to Africa. Why? Because we cannot just restrict ourselves by what we have presently. Updating and creating new knowledge is what will make us as early researchers to be valuable. On the next slide, I'll be talking about valuable research skills. It's easy to see or hear about research, and we want to get involved in research. We want to be one of those researchers that will be celebrated globally and for something novel that they have been able to create or implement. But then there are little skills. I call them little because one cannot stand on its own. It's a combination of different skills, and their relevance comes in based on unique scenarios that we may have to encounter in the course of undertaking our research. And what does that involve? We have collection of data. For those of us who are in the laboratory, we are exposed to data. We are exposed to data on a day-to-day basis. But how do we harness this data to be able to create something relevant to be published? We talk about lots of limiting factors. How can we surmount those factors? Those of us in the medical field who are practicing human medicine, when it comes to patient care, what can you do based on the day-to-day cases that you are exposed to? What about data analysis? For some of us, we are exposed to this data, but how do we analyze this data? How do we take advantage of what we are exposed to create valuable document, valuable information, valuable knowledge that can help others who have not been exposed to that unique scenario that we are experiencing on the job? I had a time where, that's just a story, by the way, a young girl was sent to me in the lab. Then I was practicing in a private hospital, and the doctor had written the test that the laboratory investigation was to be MP readout. That's one of the most common tests that we have been prescribed, malaria and typhoid. And when I took the girl's hand to collect her blood sample, I somehow had a glance on her palm and saw how pale the palm was. I don't clock patients, but because I've been exposed over time with contact with patients, doing sample collection, all that, and I've also had persons who have had a few health challenges. So there are some observations you can see phenotypically, and you know that something is not right. And although the doctor had indicated MP readout, when I saw the palm, I just took an initiative and did PCV as an added test. She wasn't charged for it, but I was like, this had gone beyond just following hook, line, and sinker. They said this, I must do this. What if you observe something different from what you were told to do? Have we learned to take that initiative? Initiative is a basic skill for every researcher. Do I just say, yes, this is what the SOP says, and if any modification out of the SOP invalidates the result? What if there is a new method? What if there can be a modification and still come out at the same result? I would go back to my story. And when I ran the PCV, the girl's PCV was 13%. We know that for ladies, for female, the normal range for PCV is about 35 or 37 to 40, about within that range. Her own was 13%, 13%. I had to leave the lab. I don't think I'd even concluded the MP and WIDO test, because I just had to get involved with the girl while I was collecting the sample. I said, oh, what's wrong with her? She said she's been fainting. So I knew the fainting was not malaria issue, was not typhoid issue. She was anemic, and a very bad one. I stood up from the lab, went straight to the consulting room, Coincidentally, the doctor was already clocking another patient, and I was like, I'm sorry, I'm interrupting you. That girl who you just referred to the lab for MP reader, I decided to do her PCV because she was looking too pale, and her PCV was 13. The doctor had to leave the patient she was clerking, and that girl's case became an emergency case. Imagine if I didn't take the initiative. I'm trying to correlate this story to research skill. Imagine if I just felt like, no, this is what I am told to do, and I'm going to get stuck to that. Who knows? The girl may have malaria or typhoid. The doctor prescribes a drug based on it. She goes home and maybe does not survive. Because when I spun her blood, the whole blood, to get the plasma for the subsequent test, the amount of red cell was so small. It was just more of plasma. And I'm saying this because sometimes when we look at research skills, we just tend to think it's until faced with a conical flask, a bacteria, a swab, or whatever sample I'm holding, that's when we're talking about research skills. There are different ways you can be able to implement the things that we are exposed to on a day-to-day basis. I know we have persons from different fields that may not even be in the medical field, but on a general scale, how do we harness this information, these data that we are exposed to on a consistent basis in handling the research that we are looking at? And when it comes to online sourcing of information, it's a skill that we cannot. Thank God for the internet. So we are exposed to lots of information on a constant and regular basis. One of our speakers talked about harnessing the internet to improve our information, improve our knowledge base, and be relevant. Online information sourcing is very vital. It's an important skill in research. Critical thinking and analysis. There are sometimes you're faced with complex information, complex data, and the issue is even before you can analyze what you analyze, you have to analyze. You have to think critically. Sometimes you have to troubleshoot. Sometimes you have to interact with others in relevant field like you, all in a bid for you to get a solution. On the next slide, part of the research skill we have to also look in research skill is ethical consideration. For those of us who are in medical field, we know that we cannot just publish, we cannot just write a paper on a case study, we cannot just take the data we're exposed to in the lab and just begin to publish without getting ethical approval from the medical body that are in charge in our respective organization. Either the medical ethical board, whatever the name is called in your specific organization. Understand ethical consideration and make sure that that ethical approval is gotten before you can proceed. Data interpretation and presentation. Whatever data we gather and analyze and interpret in the course of our research will demand some form of presentation, will demand some form of report writing, will demand some form of scientific writing. All these put together helps in improving our research knowledge, our research base, our research expertise. I'll be rushing up so that I can be able to round up in the next few minutes. And what about project management? On the next slide. Project management is a vital skill that can be applied in different fields. Learn project management. Because we've had cases where people start their research, especially here in Nigeria. I don't know for other countries, and we have postgraduate students doing their project, and at a point they have to get stuck because they don't have the funds to proceed, or the capital that research they are embarking on is so capital intensive, and they have to either halt or change the topic completely. People that we have to learn to work within the scope that we are exposed to. Learn project management. Every research project requires an amount of knowledge in project management to handle it effectively. We need to look at our strategies. We need to be creative. We need to harness different factors for us to be conceptualizing research in problem solving. And now I'll talk about what is problem solving. Problem solving has to do with, on the next slide, has to do with looking for ways to solve a problem. That's the easiest definition I can give. And for every research, we always have research objectives, our aims and objective in every research proposal, and what's the aim of it? One thing is you're asking who will be your supervisor? Who do you have to meet? Who can you collaborate with? Who can you interact with in the course of executing your research work that can help you achieve your goals faster? When do you intend to execute that project? When do you intend to execute that research? What timelines and deadlines do you have to finish up your laboratory work, to finish up your research work, to finish up your public health work, depending on the field of research you're involved in? What deadline do you have to write your report? What deadline do you have to do scientific writings and publications, writing manuscript for publications? What deadlines? When? That's one question you would have to. Another question is, how do you intend to execute that research? What are your aims? What do you intend to achieve at the end of that research? Why are you even taking up that research? Where will be your location? Are you going to be target specific, population specific, age specific, gender specific? So these are factors, these are questions you would have to ask yourself and address in the course of handling your research. On the next slide, I said that problem solving is a vital part of research. Problem solving is a very important part of research. And problem solving is a mental process of analyzing the situation, understanding the options available, and implementing a workable solution. Workable solution. You can't just say because I have a problem, any solution is a solution. No, there will be options, and there will be a part where you have to narrow down on your options to get a solution to the problem you are intending to solve. Know that problem solving doesn't have to do with you just writing out that you have a problem. You have to find a way to solve the problem. Solve a problem. There will be a series of ideas. If you look at the picture on this attached to the slide, you have questions in your mind. You come up with a series of options. And the next thing, you just have a light bulb moment, a time when you just feel, no, this is going to work. And then you get a solution to that problem. On the next slide, I would say that problems come for you to provide a solution. The next slide, please. Problem comes for you to provide is a combination of problems and solutions. And how do you solve the problems? We have part of decision making. We have a part of team building. We have a part of it being harnessed in research. We have an aspect of analyzing the data, analyzing the processes involved that will be implemented in the course of executing our work, of analysis. We have the aspect in problem solving of active listening. Because there are times when you get so stuck that you can't find a solution yourself. You may have to collaborate with your supervisors, you may have to collaborate with other fellow researchers, you may have to collaborate with other people who have expertise in that aspect you're struggling with to get clarity on how to progress in handling your research. And you have to be able to learn to communicate. Some of us would say, I'm not so sure. But for you to make headway as an early career researcher, especially for those of us in Africa, you have to learn to communicate. You have to learn to be an active listener. Because sometimes the solution we are looking for could be connected without our ability to collaborate with the right set of persons. And you can see or find the right set of persons if you don't learn to communicate, if you don't learn to be an active listener, if you don't learn to network. One of our speakers talked about collaboration. Problem solving when it comes to research is holistic. No part of the skill stands on its own. We need teams, we need research base, we need grants, we need lots of factors, but then these skills will come up and their relevance differ based on our unique scenario. And on this note, I will be ending the training on contextualizing research in problem solving. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for listening. Mr. Liu, I'm done with the training. You can continue. I believe we will have a time for questions, which he would be able to handle.
Cream so that okay. 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 All right. I think I will reach out to others now. They will be joining us in a bit. Thank you so much for the training. Then we're going to be going briefly to the questions and session. So let me just quickly reach out to Idris. I can see Dr. Laniyi is already with us. There are some few questions that came up. I'm going to be projecting the question for us briefly. Okay. I think I will also bring okay, Idris equally online now. So okay, sorry. Now basically there are some few questions that that came up when Dr. Dr. Olani was making his presentation. I'll try to see if I can get to the questions now so that I will project one of this. Okay. Now, this question is from one of the participants. I'm going to be showing it up, going into us now. Sorry, I'm having. Let me remove the banner. I think is sorry, I used to be having Please, can you see the question?
I could see the question.
Okay, I would just read out the question. I wanted to project it, but since from Emmanuel, the question was
I could see the question.
what are the specific skills we need to have when looking for opportunities? I think that when looking for. Can you hear me?
Yes, I could hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, very well.
Okay. I think the question is on the screen now. Hello, sir.
Yeah, I could hear you.
Hello.
Can anybody hear me? Yes, I could hear you.
Yeah, sir. This question is for you, Dr. Olani. If you can just kindly answer the question. The question was, what are the specific skills we need to have when looking for opportunities?
Okay. If you could mute your stuff. Background noise.
Okay.
It's a very general question, and I think the kind of opportunities you are looking for is going to define the kind of skill sets that may be needed. So, I will just answer this way. There is a background noise somewhere. I don't know. Leonard. Okay, so like I said, the kind of opportunity you are looking for will determine the kind of maybe appropriate skill set that whoever is providing the opportunity will be looking for. I will say, for example, the kind of skills that are required of a postdoc will be different from the kind of skills that are required of somebody that needs to just do internship. Also, the skill sets required will also vary the uh, by the let me say by the specialty that the opportunities are in. But I would say look at the opportunity you want, look at what you want, look at the people that are currently in that position, read their biography, look at what they're doing. For example, that is leading WHO, United Nations Intelligence Committee on Anti-Terrorism. That's the kind of person I want to be. Is an Ethiopian, so I had to check his profile, see the trajectory of his career, and I could see that I'm somewhere in the trajectory. So I reached out to him to tell him this is where I want to be in the next 2 years, for example. I'm just using an example to get more guidance. So information, knowing more about the opportunity itself, kind of people in the opportunity, we actually can give you an idea of the kind of skill set that is needed. So I think that's the way I will answer it.
Okay. I don't know if Idris, is there any other things that you want to add to what Dr. Olani said, sir?
Yeah, I think basically, as we all know, that this research of a thing is something that is very broad. And for instance, someone that is actually having interest in virology, the specific skills that he may need to look at for opportunities will definitely vary from someone that has interest in bacteriology or even in surgery or in public health. Quickly, I think specific skills that you may need for biomedical science generally, I think they are mainly latest laboratory technologies. Talking about these types of sequencing, for instance, now if you're actually looking for opportunities that dwells on vaccine production, you must have some knowledge and a mid-level knowledge in molecular biology. You understand? For instance, there is no way someone has never handled any of this PCR equipment before, and they start thinking of trying to look for opportunities in vaccine and discoveries, or even in all this diagnostic device production. It will be a bit difficult, and most of these people, they may not actually be convinced that you will actually bring something on the table. So I think for people that actually want to venture into things like diagnostic arm of medicine, you really need to
All right.
equip yourself with the technologies.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Gray. Okay.
The facilitators be able to effectively.
All right. Okay. Dr. Grace, any addition?
Could you hear me?
Dr. Grace, is there addition to what Dr.
Okay,
Lanini
I
and
just
Mr. Idris has said?
okay. I just made a comment that Dr. Olani and said we'll be able to adequately address the question. I don't think I have further comments to make on that.
Okay. All right. I will move straight to another question. I think I will direct this to Dr. Grace. The question was, I'll project it equally. Try to. Hello? Sorry, it seems to be having a network.
Sorry.
Okay,
I
okay,
can hear
that's fine.
you.
Okay, that's fine. Then the next question is directed to
Okay.
Dr. Grace. So what are these? I think this is almost the same question related because it was what are the skills necessary for a researcher, hard and soft skill. This was by the network seems to be having issue with projecting the questions. Then I think I will just be reading it out because of time. Then the next question I want to take
Hello,
is
can
from Samuel Shunika. Say, how do one position his or herself to get? Hello,
Yeah,
I
we
hello.
are
can hear you,
listening.
Paul.
Okay. Say, how do one position his or herself to get research mentor or guidance? I want each and every one of us to actually
I
speak
can't
on
hear
this
you.
aspect. Although Dr. Lani you mentioned some few things in that regard.
Hello. Oh.
Hello, Leonard. I could see the question and I could see Idris Nasir. I don't know what's
I
going
think
on.
their network is actually somehow, fluctuating.
Hello?
Yeah, we can hear you. I think you. Hello.
Seems to be having a connection issue. Please just pardon me, please. I think the network is a bit better now. Yeah. So we just repeat the
Yes,
question. The
we can
question
hear
was
you.
how do one position his or herself with research mentor or guidance? I projected the question. Each and every one of us can actually go ahead to answer that question. It's on the screen.
Well, well, I think. Can you hear me? Hello, can you hear
Yeah,
me?
we can hear you.
All right, thank
Yeah,
you.
we can hear you.
You
We can
see,
hear you.
there's this, there's this, there's this, principle that if you really want to be a good researcher in life, you must have mentors, good mentors. And I believe each and every one of us here have our mentors. And this mentorship is not the same thing like supervision. Our mentorship is a voluntary. It's a voluntary stuff that actually, hello. Hello, Mr. Leo. Wow.
This network is
Okay, please, can we? I think it is better now. If we can take, I think Mr. Idris was answering the question. If
Yes, when
Dr.
you went
Grace
out.
and Dr. Lani could equally just make a contribution to the question on the screen. Okay. Hello?
Yeah, we are with you. I guess Idris
Hello?
was trying to answer.
Yes, I'm not done with it. I was actually trying to talk about the issue of this mentorship. Mentorship is something that is very important. And as for a young career investigator, there are some things that you have to put in mind before you actually contact mentors. First thing is that we have to put in mind that this mentorship is a voluntary, it's a voluntary stuff. It's not like supervision. You must look for mentors that are actually having the same research interests with you, although some mentors can actually be from other areas. Mentorship may not necessarily be on research, it can be on general life, but for the purpose of your own specialty research, you need to look for someone that has patience, someone that is skilled in that area, someone that has reputation in that specialty, and someone that is also willing to assist you, someone that has time for you at the same time. Because if you don't look at these things, you may end up getting a wrong mentor who will be very busy, who may not even have time for you, and so on and so forth. And this mentorship is not something that you do day in, day out. You must have specific timing. It's either once in a week, two times in a week, and so on and so forth. And you must have a kind of things, timeline, things that you need to ask your mentor. You don't ask him question generally. You ask him this, ask him that. It has to be sustained. There must be a kind of a graduation of things that you ask him over time. So I think these are the things that you look up to from a mentor before you actually say that this person can be a suitable mentor to you. Yeah.
Okay, for me, I think another important thing is the fact that I'm just speaking based on what I do and what I've learned is a mentee to must be verified by the mentor. Not a one-way traffic. It's not that it's the mentor that will be giving you, regularly for you. You must also think of what the mentor has to benefit in the mentor-mentee relationship. And I'll give an example of I have a few mentors. The one of my mentor, I work with them. I throw research ideas to them. One or two maybe may not push it forward. But I mean, there has been one or two outstanding ones that, oh, they like it, it's excellent, they enjoying it, look for the work. End of the day, they owe you. So I think it always works when you're able to get out of it, because think of the value you can add to the mentor.
I think also on the question, when it comes to getting a mentor, I know that was he commensurate the willingness and interest in on the part of the researcher himself or herself. Because if we are opportune to see a mentor that is willing and available, if the effort happens accepted us, they don't see it. It's also capable of making them lose interest in us. So one thing I advise, especially when we are choosing to meet mentors or access to mentors are ready to help us in actualizing our dreams as researchers, we have to play our own part. I'll give a story when my PhD, in my first few months of research, I had one of my mentors who probably need to support urgent, and because of the pressure I had from him, it be the first PhD myself to the presentation because of my PhD, and that then put my engagement to made me get commensurate what I needed. So we have a part to play as researchers. Shouldn't be the one to put us under pressure. They shouldn't be the one just to see us make progress, and we are uninterested in our research because people should that level of uninterest or to get our work over time. They lose interest in being mentors, no matter how much they want to help us in the first place.
Okay. I think we've gotten that. Then this question is although we might not really be able to follow step, we could just give some few steps. So are there like steps by step process to follow as an upcoming researcher in order to be a successful one? Hello, can you hear me? Oh.
I think it's better.
Hello?
To mention any of the panelists you want to answer the question. I think
the network seems very bad. Okay, we can just go ahead and answer the question on the screen because of time. In the next like 5 minutes, I want us to bring the meeting to a close because of network issue we are having. Then the other question we can actually attend to, I will get them across to each and every one of the panelists. Then I will put them in the chat on the YouTube chat board. Hello, Dr. Grace, Dr. Lani. Can you guys hear me, please?
I can hear you clearly. So for this question about step-by-step processes, I guess I would just say
Please, can we just go ahead to answer the question because of I
yeah.
seem to be having network. I don't really know if it's from my end.
So I would just say the person that asked the question should
Hello?
should just listen to the presentation all over again. A lot of step-by-step process.
Hello? Okay. I think because of the network issue we are having. Okay, please, you can go ahead with the question then.
So if you did not hear me the other time, I said to answer the question about step-by-step processes to become a successful researcher, I would advise the person that asked to kindly take a listen to the whole presentation all over again. We detailed a lot of what we think are the step-by-step processes that you must consider. This is crazy. So, Idris Nasir and Grace, nice to meet you guys. Sorry, I have to leave now. Dr. Grace, rather, and Dr. Idris. I will try and link you up on LinkedIn one way or the other, and we should connect. Thank you for your presentation. I also learned from your presentation. I have some family issues to attend to now. I hope we get opportunities to work together or to meet somewhere in the coming
Certainly.
months. Yes, yeah.
Yeah, certainly.
Okay. Yeah.
All right. Thank you. Thank you for having you. Yeah. Thank you. Hello, Mr. Leonard.
All of us, I had a lot of network issues, so I want to appreciate us for all we've done. I want to thank Dr. Grace Ugwanya. I want to equally thank Dr. Lani in Asemsha. He needed to do some few things. Then I really want to thank Dr. Yes, I know he's already a doctor, just Dr. Idris Nasiru Adulai for all your contributions and everything that you've done for the insight. And for those that their question we couldn't take their question because of network issue. I promise to actually get the questions across to the panelists, the one that concern each of them. Then I'll answer them in the chat box on the YouTube channel so that it could go through the questions. So you can just check the trend of the comments on the YouTube channel for a specific answer. So I want to appreciate all of us for everything, for making today meeting so great. So thank you so much, and God bless you all. Thank you, Dr. Grace. Thank you. You can actually go to LinkedIn to connect with them. Dr. Grace is on LinkedIn. Dr. Lani is on LinkedIn. I know Idris is already a doctor, just waiting for confirmation. Is equally on he is equally on LinkedIn. So you can just search out for their names or LinkedIn to connect with them for further communication. So God bless you and thank you all. The next meeting we're going to communicate to us the modality.
Thank you for having us. Thank you very much.
We really want to appreciate all of us. Thank you all from the team, all of us from Research Hub. We want to appreciate you all. We want to say we really thank you for attending the webinar. It was worth it, and you can always go back to watch the videos. They are open on the YouTube channel so that you could get if there's anything you miss out. You can also equally with the permission from the panelists, I will equally share the slide to us on a PDF format in the subsequent mails that I will send to us. So thank
you. Bye-bye.
As regarding that. So thank you so much and good night.
Thank you.
So equally we want to thank this category of persons that actually supported this to appreciate all of them. We want to say we appreciate them for taking the time to support us. All our teams from Research Hub, they are the best. There is none to compare to them. They are so wonderful. So we are equally in support of this great movement that is ongoing to stop police brutality and the rest in Nigeria. So we want to thank all our speakers and want to thank all our sponsors for this great day. Thank you and good night.